All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of CO Pod. I'm your host, Caroline, and I'm joined today with Coralee Beatty. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Yeah. So, Coralee is a prominent construction business owner, a mentor, and an advocate for women in construction. So, Coralee, I know a little bit about your background, but tell me a little bit more about you.
I'm going to give you the Coles Notes version because I feel like it always gets really long. I have been in the construction industry for almost 30 years, and I guess that's part of why it can be long. But I started in the mid 90s, and I started as a building envelope consultant in a multinational engineering firm. I worked in both Canada and the US doing that. I was there for 10 years. In that time, I met my husband, who happens to be a plumber by trade. And no, we didn't actually meet on a job site, although we have been on the same job sites. We just didn't know it at the time. It was before we knew each other. And we, we kind of raced mountain bikes together, hung out a bit, whatever. We started a business, got married, had some kids. And we had that business, plumbing, HVAC, was full mechanical by the time we sold it in 2017. At the end of 2017, we sold it. And since then, I've been helping other construction businesses in a variety of ways, as many ways as I can. Like, for the amount of experience and knowledge and lessons I have learned over the many years, whether it be actually project related, business related, human related. There's a lot that I really want to be able to share just to lighten the load for anybody else. Because, the way I see it is that if I had to go through all of the things I had to go through, I want it to not be wasted. Let me share my lessons. So I've been doing that in many different ways: coaching, consulting, training, speaking. So a lot of different ways there. And most recently, my husband and I are back in the saddle and have just recently launched our second HVAC company, doing it right the first time. From the beginning. I am very excited. It's good, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and definitely, having all those lessons from, your history and having other businesses is definitely probably helped you this time with starting this one.
Oh, absolutely. Just some of the things that I didn't learn until 7 or 8 years into business. I'm like, oh, well, that would have been helpful 7 or 8 years ago. And here I am. I have that knowledge now. I'm like, woo.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's backtrack a little bit, actually. So when you opened your first business, what was the inspiration behind that? Why did you think, I'm going to start my own business? Let's do this.
Yeah, such a good question, because I always thought that it was my husband's idea. And I'd always say, I can't believe you got us into this. And he's like, I'm pretty sure it was yours. And I was clear in my head that it was him, until I'm going to say it was like in 2018 or 19, after we sold our business. I was going through some old papers, and I found this paper that I wrote, all my goals, by the time I'm 50, which I happen to be turning 50. I turned 50 last year. All my goals were written out for by the time I'm 50. These are things I wanted. And one of them was to have my own business. I was like, oh, dang. It was my fault. He was a plumber, and he was good. He went to university and got a degree in what we call Jeopardy, because he has a lot of information. But when he got out of university, like a lot of kids, they can't find a job. It was like political science and literature and history or something. So with that, it's like, what are you going to do with that? And so he started digging ditches, and that was the beginning of his plumbing career. So, we started this because we wanted to have the freedom. We wanted to have flexibility. We wanted to grow something. We wanted something that was our own. And I really liked the idea of homeschooling my kids. And I knew that if I had, and at this time we didn't have kids, but that was kind of a future thought. If I had my own business, I'd have more flexibility to do that. So there was a lot of those reasons. And that's kind of the reason we originally started out.
Yeah, I love that. And, sometimes you look back on things and you're like, oh, why did I have this idea? Why did I do all this? And then when it all comes to fruition, it's like, oh, that's why I did this. This feeling of when everything finally works out. and all those
Does it? Okay, just does it? Does it ever actually finally work out? I think we're always working towards being better to be, it's a constant journey, constant growth. When you reach that goal that you set, it's like, what's the next one? And I don't think it's for a lack of satisfaction as so much as it is a drive to do greater and bigger things. Like, so it's, anyway.
Yeah. Definitely. And then, we were talking about some of those challenges that, you faced that, are probably not challenges now, since you know what you're doing. But, what were some of those challenges when you first opened your business? What did you go through?
What's funny is that it wasn't when we first opened our business that the challenges happened, because I have pretty good organizational structural routine. I'm very A-type personality, where I'm very decisive and solutions oriented. And I had a corporate background in the construction industry, and I saw how a business could run from an employee perspective. So I saw that they did things like performance reviews and profit sharing. So I saw some things that I thought were good ideas that I would want to bring into my business. So in the early days, when it was, us and a couple of employees, it was really good. We had money in the bank. We had work coming in. We were kept busy. It was really good. It was the point at which it was kind of probably when we hit the $1 million mark, just over that, where all of a sudden we probably had, 8-ish employees at that time. So we certainly weren't optimizing our labor force for sure. But we probably had 8 to 10 employees. And all of a sudden it's just like you scale to a point where you can no longer do everything yourself, because I was doing everything. My husband was kind of running the crews and doing the technical side of it. I was doing everything else. And it got to a point where I was only invoicing the big invoices, because it's like, okay, we need some money to cover payroll. This one's for 20,000. Let's just invoice that one. Like there were so many little ones that just never got invoiced because we just didn't have the time for it. It was things like, not being able to reconcile our accounts. So, when we actually started reconciling our accounts and saw how many errors there actually were from month to month, you're just like, wow, how many did we pay for that weren't ours? Or how much did we spend that just wasn't, reimbursed to us? Like it was such an eye opener when we actually started running our business properly. So I think that those were sort of the biggest challenges, were just understanding the numbers, understanding how a business works, and understanding how to delegate. Like it comes down to being able to delegate and let go of the reins, because the type A personality that I am, I like to have control of everything. And then it's not uncommon in this industry for us women. So it's, so that was, I think, the biggest learning for me, was to learn how to delegate, to let go of the reins, to trust other people, to do a job that was good enough. Like good enough is good. That's, when I didn't have to look at it, I didn't have to touch it, I didn't have to do it. It just freed me up to do other things.
Yeah. And, I feel like delegation really is one of those skills that's so important, but it's sometimes it's so hard. And, especially for women, it's hard, you don't want to be perceived as, bossy, or, all those other stereotypes and weird things that come into that. So definitely, I know for me, that's one of the skills that I've learned.
Yeah. And I think a big part of it for me was feeling lazy. Like, well, why would I get them to do it when I can just do it? Like it was, if they're doing that, what am I going to be doing? So a lot of it was just my own feeling of guilt. Like, oh, maybe I should do that instead. Like, what am I? And so that was a whole thing as well that I had to work through and understand, that everybody has their strengths and I have my strengths, and it can be better applied elsewhere. So it's a lot of head work for sure, just to, be able to do those things.
Yeah. It's definitely all those unforeseen things that you don't really think about. You think about how we're going to pay the bills, how we're going to pay our employees, but you never really think of, what am I going to go through mentally during this process?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, after your success with that business, you decided to transition into consulting. So, really, what was the inspiration behind that? Because, those are two very different things, going from, running this team and running this business into, helping other people do that same thing.
You're right. It is in the same industry. I stuck to the construction industry because this is the industry that's me. That's who I am. And at the same time, it was a completely different business. So for me, I went from the operations business building side of our mechanical contracting company to now being the face of the business, doing the marketing, doing the sales, doing all the things that, frankly, I wasn't very good at and I kind of hated. Like I was never on social media until I started my own business. And then it's like, and then I had this love-hate relationship with it, mostly hate, until I realized that I've met so many incredible people through social media that I never would have had the opportunity to meet otherwise. So for that, I started focusing on that and having gratitude for social media and just thinking about it differently. And really, I think when, like I said at the beginning, where I had all of these lessons learned, and I had a lot of hard years, like those years, probably from years 4 to 9 in our business, maybe year 5 to 9 in our business, were hard. They were hell, really difficult, like suffocatingly hard. I was cranky. I was impatient. By this time, I probably had at least 3 kids.
Oof. That's on top of that too.
Yeah, I had 4 kids in 5 years. So I had a lot of young kids while I was running a business, and it was a lot of pressure that I put on myself. I wasn't about to ask for help anywhere because I was a woman in construction and I can do it all.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where I couldn't. It was hard. It was a lot of hard lessons. And like I said at the beginning, it's like, if I went through those lessons, like, let me share that with somebody so that they don't have to. Let me show them how it can be done so you can be successful, so you can lighten your load, so you can free up your time. Because for me, as my business became more organized and more somewhat predictable, because nothing is ever predictable in the construction industry.
Nothing.
When it became more predictable and it freed up my time, I started to do things like go to a yoga class at 10 o'clock in the morning because I could. Like, and those were hard for me because, again, it comes back to that guilt. It's like, oh, people are sitting here at the office. And it was, as I worked through it in my own head and understood, I have my role, they have their role. And those are lessons that I think a lot of women, because originally I was working with mostly just women. I was working with just women in the beginning, because the way I saw it was that as a woman who had a business coach, since I learned about business coaches, I've had business coach since all the time I had a business. So when I sold my business, I did not have a business coach. When I started my consulting and coaching, which was after probably close to 2 years of trying to figure out what I was going to do, first thing I did was got a business coach. But when we got our business coach and we were in these groups, it was me with a bunch of dudes. And it's fine addressing the business. However, I think the piece that was missing for me in particular, because I did have 4 young kids, because I did have a house to run and sports and schools, and I did homeschool my kids. So I was homeschooling my kids. There's a lot of other things that your typical coaching in the construction industry doesn't address for women. And that is the whole life outside of your business that can't exist without it. It's part of who you are. You need to be able to integrate your business part and your life part in order to really function in a healthy way. And I needed to be able to share that with women so that they could, one, give themselves a break, like just give themselves some grace and understand that they don't, just because they can do everything doesn't mean you have to do everything. And so that was kind of the start of it. It's like, I should help the people, the person I was, like, be the person I needed. Like, that's ultimately what it came down to, was that person wasn't there for me. I had the dudes, but that's not what I needed.
Yeah.
What I needed was somebody who understood all of the areas of my life and who could help me integrate them all into something that was functional.
When I've been talking to people, I've definitely noticed that work-life balance is one of those things that, especially for women in construction, is, really hard for us, because we do want to do it all because we can. We're so capable of doing it all that we just, we take on so much. And it's, it's one of those things that we found is just, it's really hard to do.
Well, it's not sustainable. Ultimately, I mean, it's not sustainable. You get burnt out, you lose. I mean, I lost so much in those years where I was trying to figure it out, where I was trying to get sorted. Like, I lost who I was, not just because I was so busy being a mom and a business owner, but because I had suffered so many hard days. Like, I forgot how to laugh. That was, for me, it was an eye opener, where I remember one day I was in my living room with my kids, and I can't even remember what it was, but something my son said made me laugh. And what I recognized in that moment is that my body felt weird laughing. It was like it felt foreign. And it was like that was a light bulb moment for me going, oh my goodness, like how bad is this where I don't even remember what it's like to laugh.
Yeah.
And that was an eye opener for sure.
Yeah. You know, when you had those dark days, what did you do to kind of keep yourself motivated and, you know, almost pull yourself out of that hole?
You can't. Like, there's no motivation. It is only survival. It really is. I know so many women who do understand that it is you're existing in survival mode. You have to do what you have to do and just keep going. And I think the turning point for me was when I got a business coach who could help me understand some things. That was a huge turning point. But even after that, because I was still doing so much of it, like still figuring out a lot of it, just and trying to implement processes and it's like teaching old dogs new tricks. It was frustrating trying to figure out how to implement something so that they would actually use it and all of the things. And the reality is I just kept going. And my saving grace was the admin person that I hired.
Yeah.
Because she was a rock star. She just took everything. And I'd be left going, okay, now what do I do? She's like, you go take a break.
I love that. You're like, okay, I guess I will.
We hired her in 2015. She was our second one. And to this day, I went out for dinner with her a couple of weeks ago. So I still keep in touch with her. She still was my very favorite employee. And it's because she made my life so much easier. Like she allowed me to not be okay. She allowed me to admit that it was okay, that I didn't have the answers. And it wasn't like she was young. She was like 21 when we hired her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was young. So it wasn't like she had all this wisdom, like of years of, it wasn't that. It was just her willingness to take on everything. And obviously she must have seen the burden that I was under because she just took everything. She's like, let me do that. And she did it like amazingly. So.
And, you know, those kinds of employees really help with the delegation too, when they just, you know, take it on without even like being asked.
Yes.
It's such a gift when you can find someone like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about all these issues. We're talking about, you know, how difficult it is for women in construction to balance the work and life and everything. But how do you believe that the industry can better support this? You know, what can be done? That's a huge question, I know.
You know, I don't think it's anything that the industry can do. I think it's ourselves. You know, these are things that we allow happen for ourselves, and we have to change for ourselves. Because, you know, no matter how accepting or how open or how forgiving or how whatever the industry can be, it always comes back to us. It always comes back to our own belief in what we're worthy of, in what we deserve, and all of those things. And if we don't think that we deserve the freedom, the flexibility, the money, then we will never give ourselves the permission to earn those things, whether it be the money, the freedom, the flexibility, whatever it is that you want to get out of your business. So I don't think it's something that the industry has to do per se as an industry. I think it's something we as women have to understand. It is our responsibility to change our experience. So it requires boundaries, like boundaries, and enforcing them, like to everybody. Know what they are and don't feel bad for enforcing them. Like understand that this is what you do for yourself, because you show up as a better person when you enforce your boundaries. When you let them down, not only do when you let your boundaries be broken or let those down, not only do you let yourself down because you're no longer honoring yourself, you're showing people how to treat you, and they will continue to do that. That's on us. And I think that as soon as we take responsibility for our own performance, our own experience, our own, all of it, when we take responsibility for it, then we're in a position to actually fix it for ourselves. Putting it out there on anybody else is not the solution.
Say it louder for the people in the back. That was incredible.
Lessons, I tell you, lessons. I don't have all this gray hair for nothing.
You know, gray hair is in style now, so I think it looks great.
Oh, thank you. I have only ever, this is a side note, but I've only ever dyed my hair once. And I own my gray hair because I'm like, you know what? This is a symbol of what I've gone through, the growth I've had, the lessons I've learned. And it's not something I want to hide. It's just like, I'm okay with it. So, yeah.
Fast forward to present day. So I know you just opened another business. So tell me a little bit about that. What's going on? How's it going? How's it different from last time?
It's different in all the ways. When we sold our business, it was because we were both ready. Up until the day we decided to sell, either one of us would be like, oh, we can do this. We can keep going. We can do this. And and one would be like, oh, I can't do it. The other would be like, we can do this. And that day that we decided to sell, my husband said to me, he said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, let's not. And that was it. And less than a week later, we were sold.
Wow.
It just took that, like, both of us ready. And the same thing this time around, starting our next one, we both needed to be ready. And I've been ready because of all of the lessons and wanting to do things right and like feeling like, we actually have some answers to start with. So I've been ready for a while. My husband came to me, I think it's the end of July or beginning of August. And he's like, I'm ready. I'm like, let's do it. So we did it. And we started out by getting our, business license and, things like that. We have a corporation that, our company that we have a corporation that this is just going to be part of already. So it's not like we had to start a new corporation or anything like that. It's kind of something that already existed. So we just added it to that as a DBA. And, we just started letting people know that we're back. And in a very short period of time, people are like, oh, right. Like, let's get, the biggest difference is when we had our first company, we did plumbing, heating, gas to start. And that heating that we did was hydronic heating. So it was water-based heating. We didn't do any forced air, anything on the HVAC side. As our business grew, we added the HVAC. And so then we did, forced air heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So we did full mechanical by the time we sold. This time around, we're focusing strictly on service because we did service, we did install, we did construction, we did renovations, we did everything. Wow. I think when you listen to all of the services between all of the plumbing, heating, gas, and service, install, construction, renovation, all of the things, it was something like 10 or 12 different services that we offered. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
Way too much. When you can pick one thing that you're really good at, that is where you can make money. And that's where we never got to with that business because we did way too much. So with this one, we are focusing on HVAC. So the name of the company is Fire and Ice HVAC Services. We are not doing construction, and we will do installs and service. Here where I'm located, the province right now has offered rebates for upgrading to heat pumps. So we are taking advantage of that opportunity and focusing on that. Heat pumps right now are huge in our area as far as the growth and the demand, and we don't have near the labor force to address the demand for it. So we're coming in to be yet another player in the game and doing it right, like just not just doing it right as far as systems and processes, doing it right for our people. Because even when we had our other business, our people were always our number one asset. They were always treated very well. They were given everything. And so we're going to continue with that in this business because that has been our number one priority, is making sure that people have a better life because they work for us. And so it's hiring the right people from the beginning, because we didn't always hire the right people before. We didn't know. So there was a lot of years of like, okay, we have the wrong people, but we can't very well, get rid of 50% of our labor force because we had work to address. We had work to do. So it was being strategic in how we're going to let people go and how we're going to hire new people. So this time around, it's like, I am not in a rush to hire people. I'm like, I am going to hire the right person to begin with, like that right key player, that person I'm looking for. I will find that person and we will build our company sort of around that, like as far as the right person and the right dream. I want them to be somebody who thinks big, who has big dreams and wants to do big things, because we're structuring our company to allow that, to give people the opportunity to have an incredible life with our company and meet all of their dreams and goals and things that they want to do in their career and in their life. So that's what we're building, and we're not in a rush. That to me is the biggest part. It's just like, let's do it right.
Yeah, and doing it right and really taking the time makes all the difference. And especially with the right people, sometimes that's so hard to find.
Oh, it can be. And I think it's harder if you think it's harder. I think if you're really clear on who it is and you're not in a rush, that sets you up for your best success, because a lot of us just feel the pressure of, we need people, we need a warm body. Heck, it doesn't even have to be that warm. We just need people to perform. And that creates a lot of chaos. And if you can be, have some foresight to see, okay, in 6 months or a year, we're going to want to build our team by 3, then start that process. Because the way I say is, like, always be in recruiting mode, always. Like, just always be having your eyes open for who good people are. It doesn't have to be like a great HVAC person, like just good people that you can train. That is really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, because, all those skills, those are all learnable. Those are all trainable. But those qualities of a good worker, that good work ethic, all of that stuff, that's not really as trainable as those skills and everything. So I think, to me, that's just the most important thing, is finding the people that, you vibe with and that, really want to take it that extra mile and have the same kind of goals you do.
Yes.
So I think that's super important. So just some fun questions just to end it with. What is the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
Oh, probably, I don't know if it's advice, but the thing that has stuck with me for the longest is perception is reality. And this was my boss at the engineering firm that I worked with when I was young in my career. And he said that to me, and I was just like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? And then when I thought about it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it just was like the first seed that was planted for me to understand communication, relationships, and ultimately just having life be a little easier for yourself when you can understand things from somebody else's perspective. So if I do something and I intend it one way and it's taken another way, that other way is the reality, whether I like it or not. And that to me was,
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely gotten a lot worse with, technology and everything. You'll be sending a text and it'll be completely perceived a different way.
Absolutely.
I always put a million emojis so people really need.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today with us, Coralee. If any of our audience wants to get in contact with you, how best might they do that?
Well, my website is thrivehq.ca. That's my coaching and consulting that I do. If there's any amazing HVAC techs that want to work in the Vancouver area, you can go to our website at fireandicehvacservices.ca. I'm pretty sure, yes, .ca. Fire and Ice HVAC Services.ca. And you can apply there. You can check it out, the positions that we have available. And otherwise, I'm on all platforms, most platforms, Coralee Beatty. I'm easy to find. I'm kind of one of one, so it's easy to find me.
Awesome. And we'll put all of these links in our description so all of you can find it super easily. But just once again, really wanted to thank you for coming out today to be on our first episode of CO Pod. This is so exciting. You are an amazing guest, and we are so grateful to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I am honored to be the first.
Awesome. Well, everyone, tune in next time to the next episode of CO Pod.